Happy holidays, y'all, and welcome to the Microsoft Megabyte for December 23rd, 2021. This week, I wanted to throw together some of my favorite segments from the past couple years as a bit of a holiday compilation for you to listen in on as you navigate the crazy, manic, non-stop season of seasons that we're in. So hey, sit back, chug that gross eggnog, sorry I'm not a fan, and get ready to bounce back and forth between topics and interviews ranging from selling skills, Windows, Teams, ergonomics, and heck, yes, even more. So happy holidays to everyone out there in podcast land, and we here at the North America Training Team really look forward to connecting with you in the new year.
You are always called out as someone who has these great insights and perspectives about what can make a successful customer engagement, a successful in-store relationship. So I'd love to hear a little bit about, are there any specific features or components to Microsoft 365 that you're excited to showcase to customers?
Yes, most certainly. I would definitely have to call out Microsoft Teams. It's just one of my favorite tools that I use each and every day with my organization. And again, it brings out the collaborative tool and being able to connect with your friends via chat, conference calls, presenting. It really expands what you can do when it comes to everyday work or creativity.
Still to this day, a lot of our customers think that if you need to co-author a document or collaborate on something, that Google Docs is the only answer. I think it's crazy that all of our features that we have when we talk about Office, or what used to be Office 365 and what's going to be Microsoft 365, we can do so much better because we have the full power of the premium Office apps in addition to the online collaboration stuff that Google Docs does.
It blows my mind, honestly, each day that, when I'm in the stores or in the retail environment where I'm asking customers what productivity suite they use. And a lot of them are using Google Docs. And I don't think it's because they're adamant about using Google Docs that maybe no one's shown them how much more productive they can be actually using the Microsoft 365 suite. To see that a lot of students that are in high school or even in college, they're just so used to the Google Docs suite and they just aren't aware of the power of Microsoft 365 and the tools that we have.
Yeah, that's our opportunity, big time. I'm always under the assumption that one of the most difficult things to do when you're working with a big box retailer that has many departments, each with their own supervisors, how do you get buy-in? How do you get buy-in from different associates you interact with and different levels of leadership and stuff within the store? Is there a Keenan way that you like to build relationships in the store?
Honestly, every time I'm in my stores, being introduced to new leadership teams in different stores, because I've covered stores in Minnesota and transferring down to Dallas, working with new partners, getting additional stores added to my roster. I've had to honestly take a specific approach in order to build those relationships and gain buy-in. And it's simply understanding what's important to both of us and how can we have a common goal and develop common ground. And so I really love to lay out three things. And it's why is what we have important for customer? How can it benefit the store and how can it benefit everyone involved? So when I say everyone involved, I mean the leadership teams down to the store associate level. And when I say it, I mean the value prop. So if we're talking about selling Microsoft 365, why is that important for the leadership team? And talking about profit, because everyone in the store will bonus off of profit.
Yeah.
So talking about how that residual income will come into the store each year from renewal rates. And then down in the blue shirt, talking about the IST value for hitting their revenue targets. There's always a why for them. And then for the customer, it's simple. We're empowering them to achieve more with Microsoft products. Everybody wins. And it's a simple conversation to have. That's my specific approach when I'm in the store and when I'm developing my relationships. It's not about what I want from you or what you want from me. It's about what's important for the customer and how can we all benefit from that.
If you are talking to a retail professional today and they're slowly getting back into the stores, getting comfortable with whatever this new normal might be, but things are in various stages of customer interaction, of course, with social distancing and everything, but things are happening. So if you are a retail pro, what are some things that you would want them to really understand or embody, or how could they how could they be prepared for the next generation of consoles, for the next generation of Xbox?
Yeah, so it's all about the triple threat. And those three things as part of the triple threat are one is Xbox Series X. It is the new console. It is ushering in the new wave of performance and precision and graphics and everything that comes with it. It's going to be pretty astounding, pretty outstanding, and pretty amazing. Part of that is then Halo Infinite. So you've got the console launching with our cornerstone of our first party content, our flagship of content, our flagship title, Halo as a franchise. Halo has not launched day and date with a console in 19 years. This is the first time since the original OG Xbox that Halo will be launching the same day that a console launches. So you get a new console, you get brand new content from our beloved franchise of Halo in the story of Halo Infinite, and then you've got Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. That's the triple threat, right? You've got the console, the content, and the cloud. So when you think about it, it all ladders up to the 3 C's, the triple threat, whatever you want to call it, content, community, and cloud. We're checking those boxes with the launch of a console called Xbox Series X, the launch of Halo Infinite, and the continued improvement into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate.
Sauce or the secret ingredients. I think what's interesting with that question is, whilst I've been a trainer, or I've been in the learning and development industry for 27 years, I'm still learning. And I think one of the best learnings for me over the past 12 months is I traditionally have always been a fan of face-to-face learning. I am an old dog, but I am also willing to learn new tricks. So when it comes to, what makes a great social post and how do you ignite the recipient or the learner's attention to want to engage in your content, I don't think it's always clear, but it's how you try and grab somebody's attention exactly the same way as you would if you were physically with that person. We know that the internet and social platforms, it is a battle for the eyeballs. So, I'm forever just strolling through content on Facebook or Instagram, but how do you grab someone's attention to want to make them engage with you?
Would you say that that's a good rule of thumb? If there is a rule of thumb that's easy to apply, would you say that you've seen more success by those who treat the post as though they are having that direct conversation with the recipient versus the newsflash, headline, wow? Do you tend to prefer the whole, hey, you, I know this is what your struggle is or what you're dealing with right now in store, and here's what we found that works, blah, 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 blah. I mean, if you could describe the tonal difference, is that kind of on the money?
I think it is on the money. I think that's a great way of explaining it. I think also starting out with a question, because straight away you're inviting the listener to engage with you. I'm not a big fan of being told what I should know, what I should learn, or what I should do, but I'm open to have a discussion and debate things if there is a need to change things. So when I think about the social post that I like to engage with, it's usually when somebody has an opinion or is inviting others' opinions. So, those are the kind of posts that I'm particularly fond of, or the type of posts that I would choose to engage with. So that's a personal preference. With Microsoft, we have social and brand guidelines that we need to follow. Whether you're training in the store environment or you're training in, let's say, the traditional classroom event, it is your personality, it is your character that usually enables you to get connection with the learner before you move on to the content. Yeah. So how can you adapt? How can you take some of those learnings, from the physical environment to the more social or remote environments as well?
So to put it simply, why Windows 11 and why right now?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think there's sort of two questions in there. There is why now and why Windows 11. And let me start with the second one first. You know, the spirit of Windows has always been about continuous innovation. It's sort of in our DNA to involve with and ahead of our customers. And so with over 1 billion people using their Windows PCs today, we've just seen a fundamental shift since we launched Windows 10. And now feels like the time to go out and present to the world the Windows that operates and works with how people interact with their PCs today and how we believe they're going to continue to do that in the future. The research we've done is really fascinating because we've sort of seen, I guess, 4 different areas that became really clear in our research. The headline when you go out and do research on technology is very often that everyone just wants their technology to be more simple and they want ease of use. And I think we can all relate to that because, sure, I want my phone or my car or whatever it is, I just want it to be simpler and easier to use. But we saw sort of 4 main topics in the research. First of all, we saw everyone just feeling overwhelmed. And that really ties back to that ease of use. You know, you and I and everyone who listens to this podcast are not complete strangers to technology or jumping on a Teams calls. But there are hundreds of millions of people all over the world that overnight had to all of a sudden not go to the office, get a PC and do their jobs from home without ever having tried that before. So that feeling of being overwhelmed is something that we set out to try and address with Windows 11. The second thing I think we've all tried is just feeling isolated, right? We've all tried to solve that by doing birthday calls on Teams or Zoom, but it's just not the same. However, that sense of isolation has just been very real, and people just crave an ability to connect with ease to their friends and family around the world. Then the third thing we saw really clearly was access to information. You know, when we go to the office or we go to school, we're not just surrounded by people, but we're surrounded by information, right? You overhear a conversation, or you have that water cooler chit chat, or someone drops by your office and say, hey, have you heard ABCD? That doesn't happen when we're at home. And so we're constantly grabbing our phones to kind of see what's going on in the world, or opening a new browser to like look at something that's not work related. And so that easy access to information is something we also were super focused on in Windows 11. And then the last thing we were trying to solve for is we are very aware that the way you interact with your tablet and your phone, like the behavior you have there, is something that isn't necessarily represented in Windows today, in Windows 10. And so that discoverability of content and information on those form factors, we're trying to make sure that you can take that behavior and use that behavior in Windows 11 as well. So between feeling overwhelmed, sense of isolation, access to information, and some of that phone and tablet behavior, those were 4 key areas we saw from research that I think we've successfully brought forward to Windows 11.
Other activities of your daily life.
And then what about the psychological side of ergonomics? How does that manifest itself in your work and research?
Sure. And the psychological side of ergonomics has really come to the fore right now with neuroergonomics. And in our Human Factors Lab at Microsoft, we're really looking at understanding the impact of using different kinds of tools, specifically like looking at something like repeated and all day long constant sort of Zoom calls, and your ability to focus and your ability to process information. There's a physical connection between what's happening in your brain and the level of stress that you're feeling and the way that your body reacts. And so you can literally make it so that you're more inclined or more disposed to having an injury if your stress levels are high. So if there's a difference in sort of stress levels or just affect levels, the difference between talking face-to-face with somebody in a normal sort of office work environment and having to maintain the sense of, like, you really have to work harder to maintain that connection with somebody when you're talking to a screen rather than talking to a human right in front of you. And that increased level of stress over time can just make it so that you're more inclined to tense up. The tone of your muscles changes. You can develop feelings of discomfort even more quickly than you would otherwise, just given the work of the environment in which you're working. So that can manifest itself as stiff shoulders from hunching up to see your screen, or it can mean that your hands and wrists and forearms get tired because you're typing in an awkward posture. It might mean that your back gets tired because you've been sitting for just far too long in a chair that might not give you optimal support. So that connection between physical and psychological comfort is really, really important. And the longer your workday is, the more chance for some of those stresses and strains to build up.
Edie, I feel like I'm participating in some live TED Talk. I should be taking notes. This is too important for me to forget. So did you say neuroergonomics?
Yeah, I did.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So neuroergonomics is looking at, just from sort of more traditional ergonomics, we use something like biomechanics to measure things like muscle activity. So we use electromyography to measure the activity of particular muscles so we can understand what particular muscles are being stressed or strained in particular postures or particular work activities. And similarly, now we can use EMG, electromyography in the brain, to help us understand how what parts of your brain are most active in different kinds of tasks, and to help us understand what that connection is between what's happening in your body and what's happening in your brain while you're doing work.
Wow. If, say, I am an employee, or perhaps I am a small business owner and I'm, opening my second shop, I'm starting to expand, I'm hiring some people. I now have, 10, 11, 12 employees that are working with me. And I'm thinking about these different online collaboration suites that I keep hearing about, Monday.com, Slack, Teams. What would be some of the things you would talk to that individual who's trying to make that decision? Because like you said with that HP example, it's a big decision. And if that transition process isn't seamless, or if that has a lot of rocky bumps along the way, it can really affect revenue or output or collaboration, all of those things, if it's not a seamless transition. So how would you pitch Teams to someone who is really waffling between a lot of the options they keep hearing about in terms of, I want to make my business up to speed with the modern times?
That's a great question. And I feel like you answered it with the last thing you said. If it's a small business, I could see how seeing everything that Teams can do can be overwhelming. There's so many different pieces. It's connecting to your calendar and Outlook. You have all these different teams and different channels, and every experience that showcases these things has like, oh, I'm a part of 15 different teams, and each of those has 5 channels. If I'm a small business owner, I might not see that can also work for me. But since Microsoft Teams can really easily connect you to people outside of your business, it doesn't matter if you are, 1 to 5 employees or 10 to 15. But if you're using this platform to then call clients or set up different business meetings or just communicate in IM with guests, you can invite pretty much anyone to Teams and talk with them and not be in the same company or organization or small business. Compared to platforms like Slack does a lot of the communication stuff that Teams can do really well. Threaded conversations and having different, areas for different topics and different groups, but it's missing that connection to everything else that helps you run your business. So it doesn't inherently, filter in your calendar from Outlook and populate with those different meetings, whether or not those meetings are happening inside of Teams. A big competitor is Zoom, and Zoom is an excellent meeting platform for having an audio or video call, but all of those extra things of, here's that file structure for everything this group of people needs. And we can work on that file while we're in this meeting on the same platform. All those pieces just aren't there in one place like they are with Teams.
What are you looking at that is impressive to you? What are the kind of behaviors you see that really make someone shine? And I guess on the other side of that coin, what are some of the common pitfalls you see that might be worth paying special attention to for anyone working in the field?
Oh, man, that's such a good question, Brian. I mean, I wouldn't have a job if we didn't have a field team. So I try not to lose my perspective on that, because if you all weren't out there selling every single day, I wouldn't have a role to be here supporting you. I'm immeasurably grateful for that, and I will forever be. The things that impress me the most, though, and the folks I think who tend to be really successful on our field team are those who don't necessarily always just boil it down to common denominators or make assumptions about the people that we're working with. I see those who are able to really pivot their approach and almost chameleon a little bit, because again, you're meeting them where they are. When I think about pitfalls, it really has to do around making use of the resources, or rather not making use of the resources and processes available to you. I know that a lot of times you feel like there's a lot of distance between you and the corporate team, and some of the things that we do may really make hit your head against the wall. Like, why do they do it that way? It feels so hard. It feels so, like extra time. Why can't I just go get this done the way I want to?
Right.
But like, I'm here to tell you that we do those things. The vast majority of our processes and our resources that we build, we're doing it for a reason. Microsoft has really stringent rules around compliance with personal data, compliance with how we spend our money, compliance with how we treat the customer, and respect their, both their self and their data and their identity. And so a lot of what we do is blending between how do we maintain compliance and the respect of the people that we service with our products, while also being able to move very quickly for the field. Continue to push us, of course, but don't make the mistake of just pushing it aside or ignoring the resources or ignoring the process on account of maybe you think there's a better way. Work with us. Give us the feedback about how you think it could be done better.
I've seen it firsthand how feedback from the field makes tangible differences in the decisions corporate makes.
This has been the Microsoft Megabyte Podcast, a training tool for Microsoft field team members and sales professionals across the country, produced by Microsoft employees.